Hey guys, I'm Ruben. This is Emlyn, and this is 5D TV episode number 4. Yeah, here we are again. So
Getting back into it.
yeah.
So for this one, I just kind of want to pick up where we left off. I was just interested in styles of tattooing, what you're gravitating towards, and from there, I just want to go deeper into just tattooing and different opinions and ways of doing it and all of the above.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So yeah, I guess my website is called rubenart.com, and like I guess so I sort of stuck with Ruben Art was like a vague term. So then it like I could bounce from I like painting, I like doing oil paintings. You do as well, and I like sculpting. I like doing any type of thing.
Too.
Yeah, and I make music, and I just like doing a lot of stuff. I know my Instagram, my social media is basically all just tattoos, but I just like art in general. I consider myself an artist, you know, at heart. I'm not really too picky necessarily. I don't discriminate on art, you know. I really like all types of art. I really enjoy I enjoy a lot of different things, but when it comes to like what I like, you know, is like that's a little bit like a gray area sometimes. I believe like any artist, we all sort of go through like phases. Like Picasso had his like blue phase, you know, and different artists tend to have different things. And like I mentioned before, when I was starting out tattooing, like I didn't want nothing to do with like color realism or even color, and mainly just because like how much money it costs to buy all the fucking inks.
Yeah,
you
totally.
know? And like the supplies and cleaning out your tubes and doing all that stuff. So just like a bottle of black and a bottle of white and some water or glycerin to like water it down was like more than enough for me, and I enjoyed that. I was like a firm believer of like packing light, you know, and like being on the road, and just like, you know, it is what it is. The tattoos were more so in the moment, you know, spare the moment kind of things. Then as I started to like, all right, so then this is the other thing. I guess with tattooing, like what works on a canvas doesn't work on skin.
100%. That's the biggest thing I've been learning since starting.
Yeah, it's
completely different.
It's not the same. And just because you can do something with so many layers in an oil painting or an acrylic or watercolor or whatever, it's not going to be the same as it would reading it in the future. The readability on skin, it's definitely different. That was a learning curve because I had more experience with doing like pen drawings and stuff like that, and like ink. So I understood the aspect of doing stuff that was like permanent and you couldn't erase. Yeah. But that like doesn't really amount towards the same thing as like contrast and how important contrast is in tattoos. Because you can do a lot of tattoos or paintings that are very like, you can do a lot of paintings that are like light toned and very like, you know, like
soft.
Yeah, soft and powdery. But if there's no like value or contrast within it on a human, it's not gonna look too good. Because it's like competing with the skin tone, it's competing with all of that contrast that also plays a factor into it. But
and shadows of the curvature of the arms and all those things.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah. But on a canvas, it looks good.
100%.
So that like took me a little bit to understand, but I always sort of based everything that I ever did with a lot of black, because I knew that like if it was based in black, it's gonna hold up a lot longer. And as long as the contrast is there, it can fade or do whatever, get scratched up, and it's still going to be readable in 60, 70 years. It should still look good as long as the value structure is there. And now with hyper realistic oil painting, you could have 10,000 blends of one tone.
For sure.
But in tattooing, like 4 or 5 is probably like the max that will be readable.
For sure. Yeah, and to certain areas. Definitely to get from your highlight to your shadow.
Yeah.
Definitely. You can't use so much layering or use so much, finer details, you know, within it.
Yeah. And now there's always like exceptions to the rule, you know,
yeah,
and
sure.
you can definitely do some things and you can play with it a little bit. But for generally speaking with tattooing, you can't do that. So for me, I would say my style is trying to keep my like gradients and my like blends and stuff with the least amount of it. Like I like if I'm using like something like, and I want to do like reds, I want to do black into like a really deep red, sometimes even purple, depending on if I want it like more cool or warm. And then I go from like deep red to like a dark red, and then to like a mid-tone red to like a light red. And then from there, it could either go orange or it could go yellow. It could go white to pink. It depends. So it depends. But usually gravitating around like five tones is usually what I would use for something. Any more than that, I think it's a little bit too much. A lot of stuff. And like there's a lot of like inks and stuff that they sell, and they'll sell like a kit, and it's like some of the darker tones, like you can't even really distinguish it healed from like black, you know.
Really?
Like they're so dark, you know. There's like a gray set, and if you use like a couple of those like number 5 or number 6, it's like you can't really tell if it's black or not.
Right.
And it really just muddies up
Yeah,
everything.
that's what I was just gonna say. When you're using too many dark tones, when you're planning on this area to be the light, it muds it up really quick.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, and see that was one of the things, like understanding like art vocabulary is super huge, because you could think like, okay, cool, yeah, contrast, just the color. Okay, we got orange tones here, and then we got green tones here. Look at how they contrast and they help each other out. But if the values of these tones aren't right, and the
Then it
overall
falls flat.
pieces of value is there, it falls flat.
100%.
So what I like to do, like a pro tip for me, is I like to design all my tattoos in black and gray first, and then I color them. So I make sure the value is there, and then I use like a color layer in Procreate or something, and then I color them afterwards and tint it the way that I need to be. So then I know nothing will fall flat. It's not going to like mud up over time. And there's nothing worse than like doing a tattoo and like you're halfway through it and you realize it's not doing what you want it to do, because yeah, it looks cool on an iPad that's like backlit LED, you know, backlit LED stuff, and yeah, it works on there. It might work on the comic book, it might work on the magazine, but when you're like translating it into skin and the contrast and knowing that how
too much mid-tone is never a good idea. That's why the black and gray really helps when you can see your design in that way before. For sure. Super smart, super helpful.
Yeah, I think that is like a huge thing. So to me, it's like, I don't mind if like I said, like what style or anything like is, as long as it's done right. And these are the things that when I look at tattoos is like, does it have enough value? Does it do this? Does it flow right? Does the placement work on the body for what is trying to be told of the story? You know, some things need to be in the focal point a little bit more. Some things could be recited or recede off to the distance and clouded out a little bit more. I also think like the transitioning from tattoo to the skin matters hugely. Should be like really
100%.
soft, you know, in a transition. And there's people that like to do different styles that are really sharp and edgy everywhere, like the cyber sigilism and all of that type of stuff.
You can make anything work, that's for sure. But I would have to agree with you. I like the softer edges, and it's tricky though.
Yeah, it's
tricky though. Yeah, and it's about like the trial and error, like we were talking about in the last time.
Yeah.
This takes trial and error to even recognize these things and to realize that it should do it this way and not this way. Yeah,
and sometimes you got to go back and look at what you did 6 months ago, a year ago, to really understand it, because you're just so caught up in the now. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so like I like tattoos that are done in all sorts of ways. I like all types of art as long as it's done right, you know. And then, but when it comes to me and the way that I do it, I really want something to have like a focal point, something that's going to draw your eye into here. Yeah, there's going to be a bunch of stuff there, but I'm not going to over detail it and complicate it for nothing, you know. I also don't like doing I like doing big pieces that take a while to do and to get done, but I also want to be in and out as quick as possible.
Yeah.
I feel like if I like a tattoo is a tattoo. It shouldn't, like, you can layer it, you can do certain things, and sometimes in a weird spot maybe you need to like do a second coat or a second pass on it, and it makes it just that much better. But like at a certain point, and knowing when to just stop.
100%. That's a big thing.
Huge.
I'd have to agree, yeah, because at a certain point you're really just beating up the skin, and there's only so much it can take, and not even to mention muddying up the work you did. If you get like inks and stuff and you don't wipe it the right way, there's just a lot more risk when you want to keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it when the skin can't take it.
Exactly. Yeah, the skin it's a different medium It obviously isn't gonna heal as dark or as like vibrant. You know, it usually is gonna dull down because it's living, it's moving, it's doing all these different things, and it's not as fresh. And when the skin's all open and it's fresh, so you got to keep that in mind too in the design. Sometimes you got to push the black a little bit more and push the highlights a little bit more, but you got to make sure they're balanced out right. And I do really like the old school method of like the rule of like 30%, 30%, 30% type thing is like 30% black, 30% color or tones or whatever, and then 30% like skin tone or highlight.
No, yeah, and
I
it
like
makes
that.
perfect sense. I've heard that same sort of rule in regular art, like the 80-20 or
Yeah.
70-30
Yep,
with
exactly.
the foreground and background and stuff like that.
Yeah.
No, yeah, makes really good sense.
Yeah, you get a little bit more of a spectrum better into the 60, 70, 80% rule when you get into canvas. It's just
Right,
that
yeah.
it doesn't translate the same on
100%,
skin.
yeah.
So it's like knowing that little bit of a difference really makes a huge difference when starting to do it. But like if it was me and I want like a more moodier piece, then yeah, it'll be a little bit more base with darker tones, more softer stuff, and then like really sharp, vibrant, popping 30%, 20%, like that. So it steals the show, you know, and it directs the eye. And that's one of the things I don't see a lot of people do. They like everything super detailed in all aspects of everything, and they don't really consider that like the human like vision is like everything on the side. When I'm looking at you, all I can see is your face in detail.
Right.
Everything else out here
There's
is blurry.
focal points, yeah.
So it's like the same thing I try to apply with tattooing as well. Not every aspect needs to be super HD, high def, like crystal clear resolution. Some things need to have this. And a personal like belief, like I love like Rembrandt and like the old school, old masters, you know, and especially Rembrandt, the way he is with his textures. When you look at it like from a distance, it looks so realistic, so 3D and so good. But then like closer you up you get, it's like really loose brushstrokes. It almost looks like someone just threw the paint
Messy
on the
almost,
canvas.
yeah.
Really messy through layers and stuff. So I like my earlier days. I like, you know, coming from more of like a painting aspect. I didn't really care too much of like how oversaturated things were because it was sort of like in the moment type thing. You know, it's a performative act. You know, you're doing this like in front of someone. It's not like I can just like pull out the canvas at 3 a.m. I got an inspiration.
Right,
We're gonna work for 6 hours. You know, it's like no, I got to show up at 9 and I got to do this until I'm done, and then I'm done. And whatever I could get done in that day is what I got done in that day, and that is cool. But when you start like trying to level yourself up and you want like solid saturation to be like held up, you know, and then you want it super clean. Those are like, it's a level of cleanliness, but it also sometimes it can change the outlook of the tattoo. Sometimes some textures and some rougher stuff also helps increase it, even if it's like less saturated. And see, the thing is most people probably won't really understand where I'm coming from on this aspect because the work I do is so vibrant and so saturated that like to even like imagine using like less saturation and like less like actual like not saturation as in tint and color, but like saturation and how much pigment is jammed and packed in there. I really like doing a lot of stuff that is super saturated, but over the years I almost like a 50-50 blend of it to a degree. I think some areas this is just my personal opinion. I think that like some blues, if you oversaturate the blue, that it just isn't the same as if you like lightly put it in certain tones. And I don't know why that is. Maybe I'm wrong, you know, but like this is just what I've seen over the years. And because like especially with blues, it's a really fine line to like get a blue, and like the tanner the skin is.
Yeah, and I can imagine the blue is really easy for the skin to start to green.
Green, exactly.
Yeah.
Because if you overwork it trying to pack it in too much, and depending on how the skin is, and you got to sort of figure it out, you know, it will slightly tint a little bit green. So the less you sort of do it might give you a little bit more of a blue effect, which is weird.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things.
It's making sense in my head though now that you're describing it and explaining it. It makes especially with blue.
And it may not be taught in like seminar DVDs or in a thing like that much because everyone's going for like the best you possibly could of saturation and like a saturation at that level. And I've always been known for my high level of saturation and density that I do. But I've noticed that it sort of seemed like it was pulling me back a little bit, you know, like on some things. And so nowadays, like I still like doing really super saturated stuff, but like I would like to try to focus more, I guess, like consciously in the designs of being like, okay, this part will recede a little bit, you know, and softer, and this will saturation and how densely packed it is going to make this like steal the show as well. So then it's not just relying off of colored tones. You could still use the same colors, but how saturated they are.
No, it's really smart, and it's an interesting aspect that I've kind of been trying to figure out myself, too, is like where to stop and go with the saturation and how much skin tone to leave and all of those things. It's definitely a big factor. And also in like healing, like obviously you want your tattoo to look good the day after, but you also want it to look good in 20 years.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
Definitely.
So.
Yeah, when it comes to healing, man, that's a crazy like thing. There's a lot of like stuff that's like out there, and like every 5 years there's like a new method or a new way to heal a tattoo, and
100%.
it's, I don't know.
I know, I've been told 100 different ways.
Yeah,
it's
so
crazy. I've never had a consistent like method.
Yeah,
from
I think
anybody.
Everybody has their own way.
100%.
I was taught by an artist that I've worked and done some conventions with, who's been in the game way longer than me, old school type dude. Does some cool work. He told me this little thing is like, when in doubt, let it dry out, and it's such a really like big game changer to people who like like gooping up all this goop on your tattoo and stuff.
Or the second skins or any of these things do the opposite of that, which is really interesting to me, because when I healed my tattoo with that method, oh my gosh, it was like a dream. It was awesome. It was all flaking off like big old flakes, like the size of, you know, it was satisfying. And it was after only like a few days.
Yeah.
Because it was able to dry out. And it makes perfect sense to me, because when you cut yourself and you wear a Band-Aid, the cut just stays open and moist and it never heals. But when you don't put a Band-Aid on it, it immediately starts scabbing up and drying up, and it's gone in like 2 days.
Yeah, so we don't, when we're letting it dry out, we don't want it to scab up. So we're cleaning it every couple hours to get the plasma off.
Yeah,
and that's what
cleaning
makes the scab. It's the plasma that bleeds and sweats on the outside layer, and that's what's drowning in the second skin when it like starts to fill up. I've heard someone call it an ink sac or something like that.
Yeah, definitely, like plasma,
weird.
blood, ink. Yeah.
Yeah, and like to each their own. There's different methods. I was been sponsored by those kind of companies before, and I've used them, and I did do it, but I always figured that whatever I did before then was working way better, and that when in doubt method is way better.
Yeah, no, definitely. But yeah, it's really important to have to clean it.
Yeah, cleaning it. And yeah, because we're trying to bypass the scabbing process. We don't want to like continue to add a bunch of A&D or any of these kind of ointments on top of it and goop it, especially not Vaseline or some shit like that, you know? We want it to breathe. We just want to clean it, let it air dry. When I went to Europe, I was getting my tattoos wrapped in saran wrap. And so I started doing it for a while, and it just, I guess it's okay if you want to like spray some Bactine or take a break, you know, and like put it in, let it soak in so it doesn't like absorb it all. But like I definitely really like the pad method with like the absorbent like pad method.
Yeah, dry.
And, dry pads, and how it absorbs all of that nasty goop, especially for the first night.
Right.
Leaving it on for the first night. Now, if this is a smaller tattoo, you don't have to go so extreme. This is just talking about my large scale stuff. And when we did your tattoo, I believe we did the same method. It was 3 days in a row. We went to New York, we did the tattoo, we wrapped it up each day, let it dry and then absorb, and then the next day we just left it alone. And then we went to the next spot, wrapped it up, did the same thing. And I was next to you like the whole time during the healing process. So I was able to keep an eye on everything and really like reassure that this method is like, gonna work.
Yeah, no, I felt like a snake. Like after like only 3 days, I felt like it was already like second skin. Like a new fresh piece was already there, and all the skin was all peeled, and it just seemed like it was healed. I was like mind blown.
Yeah.
Every other tattoo I had took like a few weeks.
Yeah, for sure. And that also I believe that has to do with like how big the tattoo is. You know, when the tattoo is way bigger, you can use bigger mags, and like bigger blends, all that kind of shit. So then it's just a lot more easier for the skin to heal back.
Yeah, I can imagine less traumatizing. It's way easier to cut somebody with a smaller needle.
No, you could use a softer stroke or a softer hitting machine, you know, and probably use smaller needles and do all that stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I just think that the bigger it is, the more the blends are, which makes it closer to feel like painting instead of this like super meticulous little thing that's just like digging in the skin, you know. And we try not to like dig into the skin. We would like it to stay like, you know, in the right spot. But like to get saturation, sometimes, you know, you gotta give a little bit more oomph to it to get it more densely packed. And sometimes when it's a little bit smaller, those heels in some spots could be a little bit rougher than those areas that are really big, and they just like flake right off in a couple days real easy.
Yeah, strange how it works. I was kind of interested in why you used to always say, oh, well, when I first started, I never thought I was going to do portraits or realism, color realism. So then what changed? Why didn't you like go down the traditional path or American traditional style, or like, you know what I mean? Like what made you?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess I was always into more like darker art and like graffiti and like more
Street
images
style.
and the street style and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And like I enjoyed letters and like all the old English letters. I just didn't
Yeah.
really know what I wanted to say on me, so I was
Right.
like, I don't know. I only got a few things, or else I'm gonna look like a book, you know?
Right? Yeah, definitely.
And so I just sort of veered away from like that aspect of it, you know, and that has a lot more like, I mean, you could do it with like mags and stuff, of course, but like at the time, you know, the common consciousness based around it was doing a lot of line work and all the line work for letters and stuff. So tried to stay away from that. And then like traditional was the same thing. I'd always see like these people, like sometimes they had really like super like pasty skin, and they would like have like really amazing traditional tattoos. And I was like, dude, that's awesome. But like, why, like, because it would pop so well. And then I'd see some
sure.
people that I knew that were like out skateboarding all day, and they'd get the same kind of tattoo, and it just didn't have the same effect because their skin was a little bit more like tan and like duller, you know. So like the line weight versus the color, it was like a heart. It was just like a red heart, you know, and like the line weight didn't like really support it as much. So like I always wanted things to have a little bit more like basis in black and more like edging, and like really trying to like base the edges of stuff to like push in and gravitate your eye inwards, sort of like a painting.
Yeah.
I don't mind the traditional like aspect. I have a couple tattoos on me that are traditional tattoos, but I'm more of just like, I feel like a paintbrush seems more natural in my hand, and the mag and the shading and all that kind of stuff is there. But I didn't want to do portraits and stuff because then, you know, like the noses and like all these like weird tricky spots that like are, you know, take a little bit of time to get and understand the dimension and stuff like
sure.
that. And it's like, yeah, I understand it, but at this point I was spending a lot more time in tattooing than actually like painting and stuff like that. So I'd like to do like smoke, and like how like smoke and skulls and like and working on like getting smooth blends and like blends and gradients, and that just sort of was like, okay, cool. And then it like led into like, all right, now it's like a little bit bigger, it's a little bit more flowy, and then it's like, all right, well now I'm running out of things to tattoo. I can't like just do skulls and
Skulls
shit.
Grim
Yeah.
Reapers forever.
Yeah, so then it started to go into like, all right, well, let's get into some uncharted territory for me, and would start to like break up a face. And I would do the same method when I would like draw, and I was like learning like an aspect of something. Like I would do like lips and like, or a chin and lips. So then it would just be like, that was the main focal point, and then I'd just break it off, or like I'd make it like melt with like drippy stuff, or like put something coming out of it, you know, something else, and just making it the way that I thought art should be. But then also using them as like little guide ways, you know, to help me like to find the path to do it. And then once you got the lips good, then I'd add like the eye, and then lips and the eye, get rid of the nose, you know, and it was like sort of like a broken face. And then I'd slowly start to like put in the nose, and then I would do it like the angled, from like an angled face. And then just doing that a couple of times for a few years, you know, it
happened
just,
naturally.
yeah, it just gravitated naturally. Now I'm still not the dude who wants to do portraits and stuff like that.
But like I'm just saying, realism.
Directly. But realism in general, yeah, for sure. And then you with that method, you could really start off with realism. You can really do like working from like a big brush to a small brush, you know, with all the traditional and all the other ways, with like lining first and like the outlines and stuff. Like, oh, it's just so much, you know, and you have to be like so constant, like holding your hand so steady to do all the lines. And sometimes it just takes so many hours. And I remember that it would take hours to do like all the line work to like a cartoony type piece. And then like the shading would just go real quick.
Really?
And compared to it, you know? So I was all like, fuck, man, I'd rather just like do shading all the way, because like the meticulous doing all this and like holding it straight and like all these different angles and stuff.
That's one thing I've learned is line work is not my it's not my cup of tea, that's for sure. I mean, I'll do it, but it's not what I'm trying to do all day, every day. That's for sure. Yeah, I like the soft blends and gradients and those aspects of realism, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said earlier, it was like tattooing at conventions and stuff like that. You sort of see some people do some things, see what they're running their voltage at, what kind of needles are they doing it, how are they trying to stay clean. And that was like a big thing for me. It was like I wanted to eliminate all the, like the bullshit like process inside of like what I was tattooing. Like I would like my setup was so like messy and chaotic, and then like having to like eliminate every time, and like every 3 seconds that I'd have to like turn my head over to dip, trying to narrow this, where's my eye like looking for the image, and how quick can I get back to the image to see what or to the tattoo to see what I'm doing. Like being able to do those kind of things significantly was able to allow me to get and focus more onto the nitty gritty stuff in the tattoo a little bit better, and
For
which
sure.
didn't even have anything to do with the tattoo. It just had to do with the organization of the whole process.
For sure, I could imagine how that'd be so helpful. Yeah, because everything I've learned about how to better optimize, like I was putting my iPad on the wrong side for so long, and then the second I put it on the other side of me, I was like, oh, this is so easy. Like it's like no effort. It's like the second I look up, either way, I see it.
Yeah.
So now I don't have to actually make a conscious effort to like turn my head, do this.
Yeah.
Sure. No, turn back.
It takes time. It makes you confused.
For
You
sure.
get lost sometimes, especially with
100%.
crazy stencils and fabric and weird
I know,
things
it'll
like
make you
that.
miss some stuff.
Yeah,
too.
for sure. Easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And that, yeah, so like I'd learn some of those kind of things. I'd practice some of that stuff, go to conventions, and then like, yeah, sometimes you end up getting used to this kind of method, and then you'd go do like a tattoo convention. You didn't bring everything, so then it's not like set up the same way. You know, you have like a weird. You're not tattooing on a chair. You're tattooing like on a massage table, and you don't have an armrest, and so it was like set up a little bit different. You don't have your toolbox or your station set up the same, and like I've never been one to use like the dental trays. Because like every time like I feel like I bump into it, like I'm always gonna knock
for
the whole
sure.
fucking thing over and water it with like blood in it. It's gonna go
Right?
everywhere.
No,
and
I
shit.
could imagine an ink
Horrible.
stains
Yeah.
horribly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, like when you go to like one time I tattooed at a few times I guess we would. I don't recommend it, but our shop like at the time got offers to like open a vendor booth at like music festivals and stuff, and we would go and we would tattoo at music festivals, and it was just in the back of a trailer that was like licensed, and it was all cleaned up, and we had like running water and like all the stuff to do it, you know, but like still people are going out and like running around in dirt and sweating
Right,
in the
yeah,
heat for
no,
the next 2
definitely.
or 3 days at this music event, fucked up on drugs. So it wasn't like the best aspect, but I don't mind, or I don't regret doing it, you know, because I definitely learned like how to like really find out like what is the necessities of like what I need and like how to set myself up. And speaking of that, actually, went to one festival and then I tattooed the bass player to Flogging Molly, which was really like not expected when I went there. Yeah, so like it was like the night before we were just riding around on the golf carts because we were invited to go there, so we like all like were sort of like in with the people who threw it. So we all had like a golf cart that we could like drive around the festival grounds to get from one end to the next end and stuff like that. And they did like skydiving there. We could pay like, you know, and they had a plane, and it was like all of us and including the dudes from Flogging Molly, they all went and did the skydiving. So it was pretty cool. You know, we went and skydived, did some tattoos, you know, had some fun. And that was cool aspect. And it just definitely wasn't like something that was, okay, you're not in these, like, I guess every situation when you're tattooing, either you're going to go in and you're going to go for the experience, or you're going to go in to like execute some really good work. And like that was, I didn't mind the experience aspect of it, but like I'm more now focused into like just executing really good quality work, you know? And like now I was able to make those connections, you know, and to meet different people and get outside of my like network by doing these type of things. But like I always feel like safer and like easier like mindset going into a tattoo when I'm like at the studio versus a festival or like a tattoo convention, because everything's like so comforting towards that aspect and like trying to make everything so the client's good, I'm good, and everything's
definitely. I've especially with the way your studio is set up, it's super comfortable for the client and everything. I know because we didn't get tattooed in your studio, but yeah, I can see how that adds such an important aspect to the ease of everything.
Yeah, when we did your tattoo, it was a different experience because nothing was the same, you know, and like
Yeah,
the
no.
chair kept like wiggling around and like
Yeah.
moving around, and like the dental tray, like I kept knocking the cup of water
Oh,
and with the
yeah.
ink in it all over
And you
the
had
place.
to go like dip the ink back to me, dip
Yeah,
the ink,
and I
like full
couldn't-
body turn.
And I couldn't put it any closer because then it
For
was in the
sure.
way and the cord was getting caught up and stuff. And I'm still old school. I like the cord. I know all these dudes with their battery packs and stuff. And I got a battery machine. I just have a cord option for it. And I use the cord. It's direct power. It never weakens, you know. And there's nothing worse than being like in the middle of something and all of a sudden
For
it's like,
sure.
fuck, I need
Oh
a new
my
battery. You know, I
gosh.
gotta stop. Click, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
I don't like stopping when I need to. I like
Definitely.
to take a break like every 45 minutes, every hour and a half, something like
throws
that.
you off when
for a
something
moment.
like throws a wrench in it, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I don't know. Like I guess like the main question was just like on the style, you know. I really like the surrealistic aspect of things. I like realism. I like things that sort of make you think. Doesn't really have to be like a literal sense of stuff.
Yeah, no, for sure. I like your how you're able to turn pieces more imaginative. I feel like that's something you're really good at, making it not. And it's like if you take a face, right? Like it's not just gonna be a face. It's
Yeah.
gonna be like more like surrealistic, more imaginative
Yeah.
take on the face.
Yeah, I've been doing a little bit more like overlays and things like that, and like not just like basic normal like double imagery face morph, you know, just
Yeah.
trying to like include things to be a little bit more like with flow and stuff like that, add into it different layers and stuff. And I like things that aren't so literal and like can, you know, like if you're trying to go for some like sort of thing like an emotion, we don't have to have like all these tiny little things to explain it or a bunch of words so you can get the point across.
100%.
And to me, it's not really like, I don't know how to explain it. Like,
Yeah, that's like show don't tell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Like, and like, I like pieces where like every person can view it and they can have their own interpretation of it.
Yes, yeah,
And it's
leave it
not-
open ended.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to like spell it out for them.
Yeah, exactly. And, yeah, I mean, tattooing, like coming up with your own ideas and doing these things, like I believe we briefly mentioned it before, and I guess I'll talk about a little bit about that again, was like coming up with ideas and trying to stay unique and original is like, you know, is like, and to be like a forefront kind of person in tattooing. And like during like the COVID time, a little bit before COVID, I started like trying to figure out like what could I do, you know. I really looked up to a lot of artists and I just didn't want my work to like look like them. I wanted to have that like smooth, like clean blends. I wanted to have my work to be like professional, top-notch type shit, but I wanted to add my own elements to it. That's something that was more unique. And it's weird because like I started doing adding some like abstract calligraphy and like all this kind of stuff to the work, and very rudimentary compared to what people are doing now. But like at the time, I specifically like looked on Instagram and I couldn't find like no one doing this. Like no one was doing it. No one was mixing it in with the faces. No one was doing anything like that, like on this level. Like, yeah, some people would do it like on the side of a building in spray paint,
Right.
but they wasn't into the tattoo scene. And I was always trying to like, you don't want to like just like get things and be inspired too much from tattooing because everyone's doing the same thing.
100%,
So
yeah.
it's like trying to find things outside of it. But then I would do some, and then like just like, and I thought I was like ahead of the curve, you know, and then like
Right.
all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, everyone was doing like the same thing around like the same time. And then I would even go back and I'd start to scroll and like, oh, they're using the same element. So it was like, even what I was like coming up with to be like new, unique, and original, it was like, I don't know, like if it's like brainwave, like the thoughts have us, or like how does this even like work as
Yeah,
being
because it
like
seems
this?
like the other people that were in the same position as you that were capable of doing
Yeah.
it, it's like they were cooking it up at the same
The
time
same
you were
thing.
cooking it up.
Yeah.
And you guys were all like ready to do your thing
Yeah.
and like be the first to do it. And then it all comes out at the same time somehow.
So weird.
So strange.
It's so weird, and like I noticed it, especially like even with the way that they would market their tattoos, and it always sort of seemed like artists that had similar styles and similar things, and then like even like the music on the reels would start to change, and it was like
Yep.
all the same things. It's like, man, I'm really trying hard to be different.
I know, and then it almost makes you feel like you're becoming an archetype, or you're just like fitting in this box that was already there, like you
Yeah.
thought you were carving for yourself. But it's when
weird.
it feels like you just put yourself into this archetype of this kind of person that's already here, and here.
Yeah, definitely.
Horrible.
And that was one of the things, like when I was like making like 5D studios at the time, like the COVID, like from COVID, a lot of people started like making private studios and all this kind of shit, you know, and like when I started it, it really wasn't that many people doing that, you know, and I marketed it that way, and I wanted to be more of like a comforting, like casual, like easygoing, more elegant looking stuff, like nice statues, like cool lights, trippy things, projectors on the ceiling, and all this like sound interactive shit, you know, and weird stuff that I was trying to do, and like having like a refrigerator for the client, you know, and offering coffee and tea and like all the shit that I learned in Europe. That was like a different hospitality that we had over there versus here in the States, you know. And within a couple of years, you just look back and you start seeing like everyone is like basically doing the same kind of thing now.
Yeah,
and it's
no,
like
totally,
that's the new norm.
I know,
and
yeah.
it's
I
like,
went to my
holy shit.
dentist. I've been going to the same dentist my whole life, and now they offer waters now, and they have a fridge for their people. No, for sure.
And it's weird how that happens, because like you try to be really unique and like do your own thing. And like, so I guess when it comes to me, like with my style, I'm not trying to like pinpoint myself into a box anymore. I really want to like take tattooing for myself, and especially nowadays and more so in the future, I want to focus on making like art on a body, you know. It doesn't have to fit the exact like thing. It doesn't have to fit the rules, you know. Obviously using these rules that help you amplify your work and make the work like detailed and look good.
Yeah.
But I really want to make pieces that don't have to have literal translations and these things, and they could be open-ended, and they could be more visually aesthetically pleasing versus like a whole journey like written
more
into a thing.
thought-provoking, more
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because to me, like art's good if it looks good, but if it can make it the viewer stop and like go in their own little world thinking what it means and all this kind of stuff, you know, and it's not like derogatory or something like that, that's like, you know, like doing something pinning you to think a certain way, then I think that's the beauty of art. That's what it should
100%.
be. And I think like tattoos are tattoos, but tattoos is an art form. I guess aspects of it, like some of it might be like a tribalistic aspect, you know, like something, but like I believe that it should be more so based as an art form and not just, oh, it's a tattoo of this.
Right.
It should be like, okay, cool. Well, there's enough people out there right now that are just doing that. I'll leave that to them.
Right.
But I want to be not like fitting myself in a complete category of like all I do is just abstract scribbles on people.
Right now, everybody comes to me for the abstract. Now I have to like remix my thing 100,000 times just to make everybody happy because everybody wants a piece of it.
Exactly, and like a artist that I've worked with in the past, he told me like, and he was someone who made it really far, and he said like I just like became like my own cover band. Like I'm doing the same shit every day over and over again. And
Back to
like,
the greatest hits.
Yeah. Like the same color palette.
Because everybody wants a piece of it.
Exactly.
They're here. They want to hear it.
Yeah,
The guy yesterday and the day before, they all wanted to hear it too.
Yeah, they saw it in a magazine when they're 18, and now they can afford the shit. And he's like, I've been doing the same stuff for 15 years.
Ugh.
And that's not what I want to be. I don't want to be
For
at that point. You know, like I do something 3-4 times, I sort of get sick of it.
All right. No,
And
totally,
it's old,
totally.
You know, and like I've already been in the game for 15 years solid of like professionally tattooing. This isn't even like all the bullshit that I was doing when I was a kid, you know, like this was like been like my lifestyle the whole way up for me is like since I was younger. And I'm so glad I didn't like fit into the niche of like, oh, he does Chicano style tattoos or he does this, because in Mexico there was like the Chicano style, you know, like that type of shit was popping.
Yeah,
that
definitely.
traditional, you know, that was the thing. And I was like, I could have just started off and did that.
Right.
Because it was black and gray. It had blends, very light line work and different things. It was more like gangster type shit, you know, bandanas and all that kind of stuff and spray paint and the cans in the background and all that kind of shit. And that was cool, but like I'm so glad I didn't fit under that niche of just
definitely.
that.
It's like a double-edged sword because it's nice because you pull people in easily, but then it's harder for you to get out of your box and get people to let you do more just expansive work that's not what they're expecting from you.
Yeah,
Definitely.
for sure. Yeah, so there's obviously a lot more things to it, but for the most part,
For sure, but on a vague level,
Yeah,
surface
definitely.
level.
I think that any artist that's like wanting to learn, there's always things to like look up to and to like take inspiration from. But like if you ever just like continue to try to do like the same thing, and I've done it, you know, I've tried to replicate pieces and to try to see how did they make these color tones work, you know, how did they do when there's like next to each other, and like how does the relationship of this work? And I've been there and did it, but I realized I was trying to be like someone else instead of being like me. And the way that my viewpoint of it isn't someone else's viewpoint, and it's never going to come off the same. But the second I started like dabbling, doing my own type of stuff, I noticed I was feeling better and I was getting more recognition for it because I was being true to what I'm doing. And like, I don't know. I just think that like, regardless of which, it's just art. Just do what you want to do. Just be true. Put your head down. Focus on what you're trying to do, and just do it the best you can. And that's, I think, was basically my philosophy, you know.
I think it's super good. I think it's really easy to be led in the wrong direction and to think that you have to do certain things to get noticed or do it this certain way.
Yeah. Don't sell out. Don't sell your soul. Just
For sure.
do what you think is the right thing and what you're passionate about, because we only got one life and we don't want no regrets.
And hey, if people don't like it yet, maybe they just don't know they like it.
Yeah.
Maybe you just have to show them.
For sure.
You know?
Just show them.
Yeah. People don't know what they like until they see it.
Exactly. That's real. 100%. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Have a good one. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for coming.